Isaac nodded hesitantly. "It's just like in the videos," he said, though his words lacked confidence. Before we dive into this story, please consider subscribing to my channel, turning on notifications, and letting me know where you're watching from in the comments. In the bustling city of Lagos, nestled in a quiet compound, two families, Ngozis and Adas, were the perfect example of neighborly harmony. Their bond extended beyond friendship, it was family-like. Ngozi's son, Isaac, and Ada's daughter, Jessica, both 12 years old, shared an inseparable connection. They attended the same school, played together every day, and were often seen running around the compound with carefree laughter. Isaac, being Ngozi's only child, was her pride and joy. To keep him entertained and aid his studies, Ngozi had gifted him a sleek smartphone. Initially, Isaac used it innocently, playing colorful games and streaming cartoons on YouTube. Jessica was always by his side, watching and laughing as they explored the phone's features. The phone became their shared treasure, a source of endless amusement during quiet afternoons. One evening, with the compound unusually still and their mothers out at the market, Isaac decided to show Jessica something new he'd discovered. As he scrolled through the phone, he stumbled upon an app filled with countless videos. It wasn't one he usually opened, but today, curiosity tugged at him. His finger hovered over a thumbnail, displaying a dramatic image with bold colors and expressions. "What's that, Isaac?" Jessica whispered, leaning closer. "I don't know," Isaac replied, grinning. "Let's see." The two children crept into Isaac's room and locked the door. They sat cross-legged on his bed, the phone between them. When the video started, they were greeted with strange scenes they didn't quite understand. The characters on the screen spoke in low, dramatic tones, their actions unfamiliar yet oddly intriguing. Jessica's eyes widened. "What are they doing?" Isaac shrugged, his eyes glued to the screen. "I don't know." Their fascination grew as they watched, unable to look away. There was something forbidden about it, something thrilling, even though they couldn't fully grasp what it meant. They exchanged confused glances, but said nothing, letting the mysterious scenes play out before them. Suddenly, the sound of the compound gate creaking open jolted them out of their trance. Panic set in as they realized their mothers might be back. Isaac fumbled with the phone, his hands trembling, but instead of closing the video, he accidentally turned the volume up. Jessica gasped. "Turn it off. They'll hear us." "I'm trying." Isaac whispered urgently, his heart pounding.
Footsteps echoed from the compound. The children froze, listening. The voices of their mothers grew louder as they approached the apartment. Desperation took over as Isaac finally managed to close the app and shove the phone under his pillow. The door handle rattled. "Isaac, open this door," Ngozi's voice called. Both children decided to pretend like they were playing hide and seek. Mrs. Ngozi did see anything suspicious about them because she was used to seeing Jessica around. The next day, Isaac and Jessica returned from school, their uniforms slightly rumpled from the day's activities. The moment they entered the compound, they noticed the silence. Their parents were out again. Their hearts raced with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Isaac dashed into his room, quickly tossing his school bag onto the bed. He changed into a simple t-shirt and shorts. Jessica, in her room, hurriedly slipped into a casual dress and tiptoed to Isaac's door. She knocked softly, and he opened it, his face lighting up when he saw her. "Jessica, I've been waiting for you," he said, his voice low but eager. "Let's finish the movie from yesterday," she replied, her eyes wide with anticipation. Isaac nodded, locking the door behind her. They both climbed onto the bed, the phone resting between them. Isaac swiped through the apps and found the video. As the screen lit up with the paused image from the previous day, their curiosity rekindled. "Let's keep this a secret," Isaac whispered, glancing at Jessica. Jessica nodded quickly. "Of course. Just you and me." The video resumed, and the strange, unfamiliar scenes unfolded before them. They still didn't understand much of what they were watching, but something about it felt thrilling and forbidden. It became their little secret, a world they could retreat to when the compound was quiet and their parents were away. Over the next few months, their secret routine continued. The moment their parents left the house, Jessica would sneak into Isaac's room. The door would lock, and they would sit side by side on the bed, eyes glued to the glowing screen. Each new video seemed more mysterious and strange than the last. At first, they still played in the compound and shared their usual laughter, but slowly, things began to change. They became quieter, more reserved. The vibrant games and cheerful shouts that once echoed around the compound faded into silence. Their parents noticed the shift but chalked it up to the children growing up. Ngozi approached Isaac one evening while he sat silently on the living room couch. "Isaac, is everything okay? You've been so quiet lately," she asked, her brow furrowed. "I'm fine, Mama," Isaac replied, avoiding her gaze. In Ada's apartment, Jessica was similarly reserved. When Ada asked why she wasn't playing outside, Jessica would simply shrug and say, "I don't feel like it." The bond between Isaac and Jessica remained, but it felt different. They were no longer the carefree, playful children who ran around the compound. Instead, they shared stolen glances and exchanged whispers about their secret world. One evening, as they watched yet another video, Jessica turned to Isaac. "Do you think it's bad that we're watching these?" she asked hesitantly. Isaac paused the video and looked at her. "I don't know. It's just interesting, right?" Jessica nodded but didn't seem convinced. "Maybe. But what if someone finds out?" "We won't let them," Isaac said firmly. "It's our secret." But the weight of their secret was starting to show. Both children became more withdrawn, their moods shifting unpredictably. Jessica would sometimes burst into tears without explanation, while Isaac grew irritable and defensive when questioned. Isaac and Jessica had ventured deeper into the world of the unknown. Over time, their curiosity led them to discover new apps and websites that hosted similar content to what they had been watching. It felt like a secret treasure trove, hidden from the adults around them. The movies became more daring, the images more confusing and provocative. They didn't fully understand what they were seeing, but it fascinated them. When they weren't watching the videos, they started talking about them. "What do you think those things mean?" Jessica asked one day, her voice tinged with curiosity. Isaac shrugged, avoiding her gaze. "I don't know. It's strange." Jessica leaned closer, her eyes lighting up with an idea. "Why don't we try what they're doing? Maybe then we'll understand." Isaac stared at her, shocked. The idea sent a wave of unease through him. "What if it's dangerous? What if Mommy catches us?" he asked hesitantly, his voice barely a whisper. Jessica shook her head, her tone confident. "No one will know. It'll just be us." Isaac hesitated, his heart pounding. He wanted to say no, to tell her it was a bad idea, but the fear of disappointing her held him back. "Okay," he finally said, though his voice wavered. The opportunity came one quiet afternoon. Both mothers had gone to the market, leaving the house empty. The compound was silent except for the occasional chirping of birds. Jessica knocked softly on Isaac's door, and he let her in. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his nerves showing. Jessica nodded. "It's just us, remember?" They decided to go to the bathroom, thinking it was the safest place to avoid suspicion. If anyone came back unexpectedly, they could pretend they were taking a bath together. Inside the bathroom, Isaac pulled out his phone. Earlier, he had bookmarked a particular scene he thought they could try. His hands trembled slightly as he opened the video and showed it to Jessica. "Let's start with this," he said, his voice barely audible. Jessica watched intently, nodding. "Okay. What do we do first?" Isaac explained what he had seen, trying to recall the details as clearly as possible. Jessica listened carefully, her face serious. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Isaac asked again, his fear evident. "Let's just try," Jessica replied firmly. "It'll just be us." The two children stood awkwardly, unsure of how to proceed. The bathroom felt smaller, the air heavier. The sound of running water filled the silence as Isaac turned on the tap to mask any noise. "Bend down, Jessica," Isaac whispered, his voice trembling. Jessica hesitated, glancing at him nervously. The tension in the air was palpable. Slowly, she knelt down, her knees touching the cold tiles of the bathroom floor. The sound of the running tap continued in the background, masking the silence between them. "Are you sure we should do this?" Jessica asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Isaac nodded hesitantly. "It's just like in the videos," he said, though his words lacked confidence. They both felt the weight of their actions but couldn't fully grasp the consequences. They had ventured too deep into a world they didn't understand, driven by an innocent curiosity that had turned into something far more complicated. Isaac tried to do it, the way he had seen it in his phone, just about putting it inside. Jessica screamed. "Stop. It's paining me," she said, tears gathering in her eyes. "Let's try again, this time small," Isaac said. Trying again, he couldn't penetrate. Jessica got tired with the pain, saying they will try again the next day. Jessica's walking step changed after the incident. She moved slowly, her posture slouched, as if the weight of the day had drained her energy. That night, she lay on her small bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. The faint hum of a fan filled the room, but her thoughts drowned out the noise. Her mind replayed the events of the afternoon like a film she couldn't stop. The fear, the confusion, and Isaac's hesitant actions circled in her head. She felt something she couldn't explain, something unsettling. It wasn't just about the act, it was the way it made her feel afterward, as though she had crossed a line she couldn't step back over. She turned on her side, clutching her pillow tightly. Why did this happen? She whispered to herself, her voice trembling. A part of her wanted to talk to someone, but who could she tell? Her mother. She imagined Ada's face, a mixture of confusion and anger. No, she couldn't. The clock on the wall ticked away, but Jessica didn't notice. Her thoughts were too loud. She thought of Isaac, his face flushed with fear and hesitation. He had been her best friend, someone she trusted completely. But now, she wasn't sure how to feel about him or their friendship. The next morning, Jessica avoided Isaac. She stayed inside her room, pretending to be busy with her school books. Whenever her mother called her, she responded with a quick "I'm fine," though her voice lacked its usual cheerfulness. Isaac, on the other hand, felt the same weight of guilt. He wanted to talk to Jessica, to ask if she was okay, but every time he thought about what had happened, shame kept his words trapped. The once unbreakable bond between them now felt fragile, and neither of them knew how to fix it. Later that afternoon, their mothers, Ngozi and Ada, were sitting outside, chatting about their usual market trips. Ngozi noticed Jessica's absence. "Jessica hasn't come out to play today," Ngozi said, glancing at Ada. "Is she feeling all right?" "She said she's fine," Ada replied, frowning slightly. "But she's been unusually quiet. Maybe it's just school stress. Even Isaac is acting strange," Ngozi added. "He's been in his room all morning. I thought it was just him being lazy." Their mother's words only heightened the tension between Isaac and Jessica. From his room, Isaac could hear their voices, and his heart raced. He glanced at his phone on the table, the device that had caused all this trouble. For the first time, he felt a deep resentment toward it. Jessica, meanwhile, sat on her bed, staring at the wall. She wanted to talk to someone, to tell her mother what was troubling her, but fear held her back. What if they found out what she and Isaac had done? The thought terrified her. By evening, the weight of their silence became unbearable. Isaac gathered his courage, and decided to go to Jessica's room. Standing in front of her door, he hesitated, his hand hovering over the knob. What if she slammed the door in his face? What if she didn't want to see him again? Still, he knew he had to try. He knocked softly. "Jessica, it's me. Can we talk?" Jessica froze, her heartbeat quickening. She didn't want to face him, but a part of her longed to hear what he had to say. After a moment's hesitation, she opened the door slightly, her eyes avoiding his. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Isaac fidgeted with the hem of his shirt, his guilt weighing him down. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything." Jessica's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly blinked them away. "It's not just your fault, Isaac. I agreed too. But now, I don't know what to do." "I don't either," Isaac admitted. "But I don't want us to stop being friends. You're my best friend, Jessica." Days passed without Isaac and Jessica watching the forbidden content. Their lives seemed to return to normal, though the lingering curiosity remained buried beneath their promises. During lunchtime at school, Isaac sat alone under a large mango tree in the school compound. The cool shade provided some relief from the blazing sun, but his mind was restless. He stared at the ground, deep in thought, when he saw Jessica approaching from a distance. Her usual cheerful expression was replaced with a moody countenance. As she drew closer, Isaac stood up quickly, concern etched on his face. "What's wrong, Jessica?" he asked, stepping toward her. Jessica hesitated, glancing around to ensure no one was within earshot. Finally, she looked up at him and whispered, "I've been thinking about that stuff, and I think I want to do it again." Isaac's eyes widened in shock. "But we promised not to after that day," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I know," Jessica said softly, her voice almost pleading. "But I can't stop thinking about it. Just once, Isaac. Please." Her eyes locked onto his, and Isaac felt his resolve weakening. He shook his head, trying to resist. "What if we get caught? What if something bad happens?" "It won't," Jessica said firmly, her voice filled with determination. "We'll be careful. Just once, and I promise we'll stop for good." Isaac hesitated, conflicted. He knew it was wrong, but Jessica's pleading look made it hard to say no. After a long pause, he sighed. "Fine. Just once. But I'll tell you when, okay?" Jessica's face lit up with relief. "Thank you, Isaac," she said, her voice brimming with gratitude. Before they could say more, the school bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. Without another word, they both turned and headed back to their respective classrooms, their minds already preoccupied with what lay ahead. During class, Isaac was absent-minded. He stared at the blackboard, but the teacher's voice was a distant hum. His mind was tangled with thoughts about Jessica's request and how they could carry out their plan without being caught. He tapped his pencil nervously on the desk, feeling a mix of excitement and dread. When the school bell finally rang, signaling the end of the day, Isaac and Jessica walked home together. Jessica held his hand tightly, her grip firm as though reassuring him. Neither of them spoke much, their minds too preoccupied. As they reached their compound, the sight of their parents sitting on the veranda greeted them. The sun blazed overhead, and their mothers were busy chatting and laughing about the day's market trip. Isaac and Jessica exchanged a quick glance, their plans momentarily shelved. They each went to their respective rooms. Isaac lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to think of a way to keep their secret. Jessica, on the other hand, sat at her desk, flipping through a textbook but not reading a single word. Later that evening, as the sun began to set, their parents were still outside, engrossed in their conversation. The compound echoed with their laughter and occasional bursts of chatter. Jessica stepped out of her room, clutching her textbook to her chest. She walked purposefully across the compound toward Isaac's room, her footsteps light. Her mother glanced at her briefly but didn't think much of it. To her, Jessica was just going to study with Isaac, as they often did. Jessica knocked softly on Isaac's door before slipping inside. Isaac was sitting on the floor, his phone in his hand, his face tense. He looked up at her and whispered, "Are you sure about this?" Jessica nodded, her grip tightening on the textbook. "Let's just be quick," she said. Isaac hesitated, his heart pounding as he locked the door behind her. They quickly pulled off their clothes, trying it with what they've learnt on the phone. This time Isaac was able to penetrate inside Jessica after much effort. What happened next will shock you.